Hey, this is Jeff Rose. Welcome to another field exercise edition of Soldier of Finance. Today I want to be demonstrating how to properly probe your credit report for possible landmines. When I was in basic training, we had to do many different tasks. And I've already shown you how to do a proper military low crawl. And while that was definitely one of the most annoying tasks we had to do, probing for landmines was equally annoying, but it was even just as vital as all the other tasks that we had to do. Now, when we were trained as infantry soldiers, everywhere that we went, we were on our boots or on our feet. That was our main mode of transportation. And a lot of the different scenarios that we would run was if we were doing land movements out in the wilderness, and then all of a sudden we came across a minefield. Now, when you come across a minefield in real life scenarios, you have one of three different options. The first option is cry. Obviously, that wasn't really allowed in basic training and definitely not going to be allowed if you're on a real mission, so we won't even address that one. The second option you can do is trace your footsteps back, meaning that if you find yourself in the middle of a minefield, you can look back to see where you've stepped in and just basically trace your steps back out. That is one option, but what happens if you have to go forward? If your mission is to lend support to some other operation and you have no choice but to go through, then the last option is to probe your area for minefield. Now, if you're on feet, it's not as a big deal, but if you've got a convoy of tanks or Humvees or other types of trucks behind you, you've got to probe a large area to make sure there's enough room for those vehicles to get through. Probing for a landmine is a very tedious process, takes a long time, and there's proper techniques on how to do it. One of the things that we learned in basic training, first and foremost, is you do not want to probe directly on top of it. That's why when you approach a landmine field, they strongly suggest first that you use your hands to kind of smooth out and feel the surface to make sure there's no landmines. And then you can either get down on two knees or in a prone position where you're flush on your belly. Once you've declared an area safe to where you can start probing, in basic training we had bayonets. And those were the big long knives, think of Rambo knives, that we would mount on the end of our M16s. Today I'm using my Gerber that has a nice knife, and that allows just enough cushion to where you just start probing in the ground, softly but sternly trying to detect a possible landmine. Once you feel that ding, now that could be a rock, hopefully it is a rock and not a landmine. If you do find a landmine, then that's when you would mark it with some type of marker, and that's when EOD or bomb control would come in, or the engineers, and remove that landmine safely and securely. When I was in basic training and we were probing for landmines, I recall being out on that range for almost an entire day, constantly just probing and probing and probing. Our drill sergeants just enforcing it. When it comes to looking for landmines in your credit report, you have to take just as much time to carefully analyze your report. Now, if you've never printed off your report, I show you how to do it on the blog, so please take a look. But when you actually go and print off your report, it is a very big and long document. I just printed mine off. It's roughly over 30 pages filled with my credit history since the day that I first got credit. I can't tell you how imperative it is to go through this, scour through it, just like you would if you're in a landmine field looking for possible errors that are affecting your credit score. In this day and age, it is so important to make sure that your credit history is accurate, because when you go to apply for loans, whether that be a home mortgage, a car loan, a personal loan, all these type things are greatly affected by your credit score. And if you have a bad credit score because of some silly error in your credit report, then you could pay an exorbitant amount more interest because of that. So what kind of things should you be looking for? One of the most harmful things on your credit report is having some type of duplicate error. And what that means is maybe you were late on paying a bill or you had something that go to collection. Well, if you didn't pay it and you just let it sit, then it could be possible that that collection agency sold it to another collection agency. So now you've got two reports on your credit report for the exact same thing. That is detrimental to your credit report and your credit score. Other things you might be looking for would be other delinquencies on other payments. Maybe you were late on a credit card payment, maybe a car payment. Any type of payments where you're late on, those are the type of errors you want to look for. Other things could be a misspelling of your name, an old address, an old job that maybe it still shows that you're being employed there. These are little things that you can look at just to make sure that things are on the up and up. I know when I first requested my credit report, this was right around college time. I was curious and intrigued and decided to look and see what my credit report said. What I ended up finding was I had an old gym membership for when I used to live out of state, and it was showing as if I was delinquent. I didn't even live in the state there. Hadn't been to that gym in almost 3 or 4 years, but it was still showing on my credit report. So I was able to rectify that, sent a letter, got it fixed, got it taken care of. So now it's off my credit report, and now I've got a good credit score. But had I never probed my credit report to find that landmine, then I never would have known any different, and it would have hurt my credit score going forward. So what you need to do as a soldier of finance, first you need to request your credit report. Second, you need to probe through it as much as possible, looking through all the data to find if there's possible landmines. If you do find a landmine, then you need to rectify that situation. Call an EOD, in this case it's just sending a letter to that proper agency to get it rectified. If you're looking for more information to get your free credit report, head over to the soldieroffinance.com blog and look under the resources tab. There I have a wealth of information that talks about getting your free credit report and also your credit score. Very, very good information. Be sure to check it out. This is Jeff Rose, soldierfinance.com.